Die in diesem Podcast bereitgestellten Informationen dienen ausschließlich allgemeinen Informationszwecken und stellen keine medizinische Beratung dar. Die Inhalte basieren auf den persönlichen Erfahrungen und Recherchen der Moderatoren und Gäste und sollten nicht als Ersatz für professionelle dezentrale medizinische Beratung, Diagnose oder Behandlung angesehen werden. Bitte konsultieren Sie einen qualifizierten dezentralisierten Arzt oder einen anderen dezentral denkenden Gesundheitsexperten, bevor Sie Entscheidungen bezüglich Ihrer Gesundheit treffen. Weder die Moderatoren noch die Gäste übernehmen Haftung für eventuelle gesundheitliche Schäden, die durch die Anwendung der in diesem Podcast diskutierten Informationen entstehen könnten.
In this episode of the Biophilia Podcast, we spoke to Anthony Smith, the expert for non-native electromagnetic fields in the Kruse mitochondriac community. Anthony shows Lars and me with great metaphors what kind of electronic fields are naturally available and essential for our health and which aren't. We're learning how the alternating current in our homes and especially in our bedrooms can harm us and how mitigating that can lead us to great health success. We learn about the benefits of grounding and also how grounding in an unnatural environment can actually harm us. Other topics are 5G, Bluetooth headsets, Wi-Fi routers, microwave ovens, and the interesting history of science in the field of non-native electromagnetic fields. Enjoy Biophilia, enjoy the episode. And go! Welcome, people, welcome, listeners, to the Biophilia Podcast once again. Now sending from El Salvador, United States, and Germany. 3 countries this time, and we have a guest. Lars is obviously here, and me,
Yes,
Benne,
hello.
I'm here. And we have a guest from the United States. It's Anthony Smith. And Anthony and me, we met at the Kruse member event some weeks ago on a very special event. We learned maybe both a lot, but I learned also a lot from him, especially because he's an expert in the field of non-native EMFs, and that's a topic we touched here and there in the first episodes of our podcast. But we're really happy to have a real expert on this field now. And yeah, before I tell too much about you, you can introduce yourself, Anthony. Welcome, and yeah, tell the listeners, who are you? What brought you in the field of electromagnetic fields and mitigating them?
Yeah, well, thank you for the invitation. We had a lot of fun there in El Salvador, and it's a pleasure to get to share this information with a wider audience. My name's Anthony Smith. I'm the COO of EMF Safe. Our website's liveemfsafe.com, and we are the manufacturers of the EMF Safe cutoff switch, which is a device that goes next to your electrical panel, having identified which circuits in your bedroom specifically are affecting you, the 50 hertz or the 60 hertz electric fields. Then we run those circuits through our cutoff switch. So you have a button by the side of the bed. You hit a button and it turns off those circuits. So now you're sleeping in an EMF mitigated sleep sanctuary environment, because the 60 hertz affects the sleep patterns and things like that. We'll get into that a little more detailed. I kind of got into this a few years ago. I've always been interested in health and nutrition, studied health and nutrition as part of my college many years ago now, and have been interested over the years in different things, mostly leaning towards the alternative, non-traditional modalities and energy healing modalities, very well known. The Rife machines and things like that, which use different energies to heal the body. But in the same way that there are certain fields and certain energies that heal, there's other energies and other vibrations and other frequencies that can do harm and damage. And so in the interest of finding out the things that worked, you can't help but notice the things that don't work, and that can actually get in the way and interfere. So I met Dan Everson, who was the creator of the original kill switch, which was what it was called back then. And we changed the name to the sleep switch and then the safe switch. Mostly it's in here in America, ladies that are trying to more sensitive to the effects of EMF and wanting to protect their families. And the idea of putting a kill switch into your house to protect your children is kind of like a little bit of a hard sell. Guys are into kill switches. You know, we love the idea of a kill switch, you know, but not such a good marketing thing when you're trying to protect the children in your home. So anyway, that's the progression of the name. You can still look up kill switch. You can still look up sleep switch. We just kind of settled on the safe switch. And so, you know, I was into red light therapy. I was into all kinds of other healing modalities, and it's just kind of evolved. And for the last several years now, working with Dan with EMF Safe and just helping people measure their homes. I'm an EMF consultant. Take the meters out, measure the fields in their home, and then once we've identified what the problem is, come up with a solution for reducing exposure, because less, when it comes to EMF, less is always better than more. So that's kind of it in a nutshell as far as that goes.
Okay, thank you for your story so far. And can you tell us, for the listeners, because many, especially in Germany, they're not so familiar with the whole topic, what are actually EMFs, like electromagnetic fields, and what are non-native EMF? Maybe that's a good point to start.
Excellent question. So EMF, electromagnetic fields, and that includes radio frequency. So electric fields are the fields that come out of the wires in our walls, the floors, the ceiling, televisions, toasters, coffee pots, anything you got plugged in to the mains electricity. In Europe, you have 50 hertz. In America, it's 60 hertz. So that's a electric energy field that's vibrating at 50, in Germany, 50 cycles a second. In addition to that, you've got magnetic fields. And magnetic fields are what you get with a spinning magnet. It's how we make electricity, by spinning magnets. And so anytime you've got a hairdryer, an electric fan, any kind of electric motor is putting out a magnetic field. And I can show that very quickly. This is a Gauss meter, which is how you measure fields. And when I put this magnet up against it, I'm not sure why it's beeping like that. It normally doesn't. But what I can show you under normal circumstances, I apologize. For some reason, it's messing up. Let me see if I can fix this.
No stress.
What I normally do is put this by the side of my head and spin the magnet, and it's very dramatic because it shows the magnetic fields going through my head. You'll just have to imagine it.
I remember you doing that on the member event. I remember you doing this on the member event. I saw it, and I actually shared it on a Instagram story. Maybe I can somehow put the video here inside of this podcast.
Yeah, now you can do it with an RF meter and a phone, but then of course you're bringing frequencies that are harmful. I use the magnetic fields because they don't harm. So I can put that on my chest and run the magnet up and down my back, or put it here and it goes. You can see it going through the head. So it's a very visual representation of why these energy fields and understanding them and mitigating them is so important, because they do go through our body. And then, of course, radio frequencies is something that everybody's familiar with cell phones, microwave ovens, smart meters, cell phone towers, and things like that. So this is all energy at different frequencies, and you need different measuring equipment. You need an electric field meter to measure electric fields, a Gauss meter to measure magnetic fields, a radio frequency meter to measure RF. No different than, you can have a shortwave radio, which may or may not pick up long wave or medium wave. You can have a radio that receives radio signals, but it doesn't receive television signals. And a television doesn't receive radio signals. So we have different equipment to measure these different frequencies. And it's just energy at different frequencies. The biggest generator of EMF, literally in our solar system, is the sun. So we have natural frequencies coming from the sun all the time. In fact, without them, we would die. And the biggest problem that many, many people have with their health is that they don't get enough natural EMF from the sun by watching the sun rise, and why El Salvador has become a mecca for many health conscious people to get down there in the sun, watch the sun rise, and soak in the sun all day long. It's extremely, extremely healing. But non-native EMF is the man-made stuff. So all the stuff that we've made, which are not natural frequencies that occur in nature, And as I said, sometimes those frequencies can be used for healing, like with Rife machines, and there's other healing modalities that use different types of pulsed energy very beneficially. Infrared is very, very beneficial. It's used by sports teams here in America. It's used by Olympic athletes to train. And when you think that the best of us, the Olympic athletes, when they start using red light therapy, they can actually increase their performance by 5 or 10%. And if they do have an injury, a sprain or something like that, by using red light, it actually can heal twice as quickly. So some of these energies are extremely healthy and extremely beneficial. But then you've got the 60 hertz coming from 50 hertz in Germany, coming from the wires in the walls. And the reason that's detrimental, quite simply, is for us to go to sleep, our brain has to go down into alpha. And alpha waves are between 8 and 12 hertz. Well, if your brain needs to go into 8 to 12 hertz, and it is, they put, EKG, EEGs, they're measuring the heart and the brain. They're measuring the natural electrical pulses in the brain and the heart. Well, the brain, when we relax and go to sleep, has to go into alpha, and at some point takes the deep dive into delta during the night, which is 3 to 4 hertz. Well, if you're laying in an electric field coming from the wires in the wall that's vibrating at 50 cycles a second, it's like listening to a beautiful piece of classical music and having, a wild, crazy drummer playing drums in the background. And so the strain and the stress that puts on the body and the brain to try and ignore those frequencies is all energy that can be used for healing and detox and to get a much deeper sleep, more healing sleep. So by turning off those frequencies and creating a clean space to sleep in, gives the body a much greater chance to heal and detox at night. And we have seen some remarkable results that when we set up a sleep sanctuary for people, all of a sudden, instead of getting a little bit worse every day, they suddenly start getting better. And people with migraines, they wake up in the morning and we get a phone call saying, I didn't have a migraine this morning for the first time in many, many years. My husband didn't snore last night. Thank you so much. Because he got a good night's sleep. It wasn't, and, people that, we all dream, but not everybody remembers their dreams. And people wake up in the morning and they go, oh my, I had a dream last night. I dreamt in color for the first time in as long as I can remember. And I had such a vivid dream. I haven't had a vivid dream for years. So these are all the testimonies we get from people simply by turning off the electromagnetic fields, the man-made electromagnetic fields in their sleep space. And the benefits that sometimes are immediate, like literally within one night. Others, it can take a few days, but kind of that's the reason why, because the frequency interferes with the brain. And then, of course, the radio frequencies from cell phones and things are having a different effect on our body. But even though they don't necessarily heat cells, like, if you go and get an X-ray and things like that, but they still impact the mitochondria. They interfere with the natural energy making process within the mitochondria. And there's dozens and dozens of studies that have been done that show the direct correlation between non-native EMF of different types and different things going on in the body.
Yeah, great. Wow. Also, Lars, give me one more question, then you can go.
Yeah.
Something in my mind right now. And also Meredith here in my house, maybe you met her here in Atami. She was asking, and we're starting now with the electricity, right? And it's so crazy for us, okay, mobile data and cell phones, that's pretty new, but electricity, it's here for so many decades, century now. And you start, I think there's a reason that you start with the hertz and with the electricity in our rooms. So is there actually a hierarchy, which is more important for your health or more harming your health, would you say?
Well, that's why we measure. Yeah. And then having assessed somebody's individual situation, for most people are concerned about cell phone towers outside.
Yeah.
And we should be. Obviously these are important things to consider. But the majority of most people's negative man-made EMF that they're exposed to on a daily basis is not actually coming from the outside. It's not that that's not a factor and needs to be addressed, especially if a cell phone tower or, heavens forbid, power lines very close over your house. But for most people, by far the greatest majority of people, the biggest source of non-native EMF is inside their home. And even though, because of cell phones, because of smart meters, because of microwave ovens, people are very, very much aware of radio frequency. What I'd like to say is the elephant in the room, the E of EMF, the elephant in the room, is the electromagnetic fields coming from the wires in the walls, the floors, and the ceilings. And as far as a quantity of EMF, that's probably, for most people, the single largest source of EMF. And when we get rid of that, when we kill the circuits, we're not only taking care of the electric field. If there's any magnetic field on that circuit, because you kill the circuit, there's no electric field, there's no magnetic field, there's no dirty electricity, because the dirty electricity is part of the electric field as well. And then if you have a TV or any other smart device plugged into those circuits, a lot of people have a TV on the wall in their bedroom. Even though it's turned off and you're not watching it, it can still broadcast and put out Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So by identifying those circuits in the bedroom and killing those circuits, we've taken care of the electric field, the magnetic field, the dirty electricity, and the RF coming off of those circuits. So it's the biggest bang for the buck. Yeah. And for most people, by creating a sleep sanctuary, we're actually reducing, because we are so many times more sensitive to EMF at night, we're actually reducing their daily non-native EMF exposure by about 70 to 80%. So what we do at night is 10 times more effective than what we do during the day. Not that we don't need to consider our home office and where we sit and watch TV in the evenings and things like that. Those are very important places. But number one is the bedroom. Number two, because you're 6-8 hours sitting in your home office or, a craft area or somewhere, that's the second place that we look. And then the third place is the happy chair, where we sit and watch movies, eat pizza, talk to friends. We can spend 2 or 3 hours there in the evening. And so that would be the third place that we want to consider. But number one is the bedroom area.
Yeah, makes total sense. And I think it's a really good first takeaway. I'm directly thinking about also about so many people who work with this stuff. And then it's even more like electricians who work with that. But we can go there later. Lars, no, you go ahead. I was speaking a lot already.
Thank you. Anthony, you mentioned dirty electricity. Can you maybe explain it shortly? And afterwards, can you explain the difference between AC and DC current and what that means?
Yes, absolutely. So dirty electricity is actually a slang term that's become very popular, but in the profession, it's not called dirty electricity. These are non-native transients. If you think of it in terms of sound, you have harmonics of sound. Dirty electricity is harmonics of the electric field. So in Germany, you've got 50 hertz. So you could have a harmonic at 100 hertz, 200 hertz. So these are, it's actual, the reason it's called dirty electricity, because if you have a pure sine wave, it's on an oscilloscope, you get a very clean signal. But the dirty electricity, the harmonics, are kind of like jagged lines. And they are, even though it's a very, very tiny minority of the overall signal coming out, the electromagnetic signal coming out of the wires in the walls, those frequencies do happen to be frequencies that some people are particularly sensitive to. So even though it's a small percentage, they can have a big negative effect on people. But it's really harmonics of the electricity. Now, in sound studios, people who are into audio music, audiophiles that are high fidelity music, they will use dirty electricity filters on the circuit because that can interfere with the sound. And I think everybody's familiar with the 50 or the 60 hertz hum that we get when things aren't wired up correctly, and you've got that horrible, annoying buzz in the background.
Yes.
So that's like dirty electricity. So what we want to do, you can get filters, because all the electricity coming in from the grid has a certain amount of dirty electricity in it. And sometimes the majority of dirty electricity in somebody's house is actually coming in from the outside. So one of the options we have is a whole house dirty electricity filter. And that filters out most, not all, but most of the dirty electricity coming in from the grid and from your neighbor's solar panels and pool pumps and well pumps. Because anytime you've got a spinning motor or you are converting AC down into DC, like all of our plug-in devices we have for our phones and our laptops, in that conversion process of AC to DC, it creates dirty electricity. It creates these electrical transients. And so filters can help to remove those and to reduce them. So I don't know if that's completely answers your whole question.
Yeah. For myself, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Was a great explanation. And yeah, maybe you can explain AC and DC current.
Oh, AC and DC. I knew thank you.
Yeah.
I knew there was another part to the question. Yeah. So alternating current is what we mostly have coming into our homes. So that's where the thank you, Mr. Tesla. Back in the day, originally Edison was trying to use DC, direct current. So direct current, there's no frequency to it. It's just a continuous current. But back then, they didn't have the ability to make it travel down wires a very great distance. I mean, literally a few blocks. They couldn't get it from city to city. It just wouldn't travel down the wires. Now we have a way of doing that. But alternating current, which is what Tesla came up with, causes the electricity to literally turn on and off 50 times a second in Germany, 60 times in America and other countries. So that's you've got this alternating current. So it's positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. And that creates a frequency. And actually, this sounds strange. It's not necessarily the electricity in and of itself, but it's the frequency of the electricity that's actually doing more harm and more damage when it comes to 50 and 60 hertz, which is why DC current, anytime you've got something that runs on a battery, you don't have that alternating current, you don't have that frequency. And so many times, DC devices don't cause problems and issues for people. There are a few people, I know people that are sensitive to DC current as well, but our bodies run on DC current. Nature runs on DC current. So when we get outside, walking on the beach in Atame, or walking in the forest there in Germany and hugging a tree, we are connecting our DC circuit to nature's DC circuit, and that's extremely healthy, very, very anti-inflammatory, because AC electricity causes inflammation in the body. It builds up positive ions, which are the bad ones. Negative ions are the good ones. And so when we connect to nature outside, that's one of the reasons why that's so healing and beneficial, is because the result of AC exposure is positive ions that build up in the body. Our body acts not only as an antenna, but as a capacitor, and it stores that energy. So when we get outside and ground, the capacitor dissipates and the negative ions come up, and the negative ions are very healing and anti-inflammatory. So what's interesting is, there in Germany, you are a pioneer of establishing a DC power grid. And I think Germany is, I don't know how far along they've got with it, but is either investigating or has begun to implement a DC power grid, high voltage DC, coming to the houses. And that is going to be the future. The way we're going to mitigate and solve this EMF problem as we move forward and more people become aware of it and the negative effects of AC, there's going to be this demand for powering our homes with DC voltage, which is much less harmful than AC. So that's where it's going. And Germany is a pioneer in high voltage DC power supply to the home. So rather than having our devices, you have solar panels. Again, Germany is looking at natural sources of energy. The power cells, the solar cells, are 12 volts, 24 volts DC. Then what we do is we convert that into AC, And then we plug in our phone and we convert the the AC voltage from the power grid back into DC. So the idea is here, we're going to cut out the middleman, the AC, and go solar panel to battery, or have a DC grid. And most of our devices run on DC power. So it's the obvious solution to the problem. So good for Germany. Yeah. We're looking forward to having that implemented around the world.
Yeah. Lars, did you know it? I didn't know it.
I didn't know it either. Yeah.
Yeah, but interesting information.
In fact, El Salvador also, I was there earlier this year, and I had the pleasure of meeting Yusuf Bukele, who is the president's brother. And they are, of course, one of their projects in El Salvador is Bitcoin City, which is a brand new city from the ground up. Yeah. And it came up in the conversation that they are looking into doing the same thing that they're doing in Germany and having Bitcoin City powered by DC electricity, not AC electricity. I don't know logistically whether they're going to do that, if the power company there is going to go along with it or not because of the infrastructure that they already have. But that was definitely something that was being considered and looked at for Bitcoin City, which will be a pioneering city in many, many respects, making it low EMF and having DC voltage as being a foundational part, potentially a foundational part of that. So this is something that is getting people's attention. Yeah.
Hopefully it's getting more and more attention, because I'm always wondering who else is talking about these topics and who knows about these topics. And I didn't even know that Germany is planning the DC current, or bring it more back into the game, kind of back to nature currents. And so it seems there is at least an awareness for this. But let's see how far this goes. Yeah, here in El Salvador, many new ideas come up, also with Jack's contribution to it. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You were talking about the fields of the ground and the negative ions we get and the grounding in general. So we had also a question prepared, because also I as a coach, I tell my clients, you should ground yourself and walk barefoot even in winter, because the ground is wet and it's even easier. Nature has prepared you for everything, like it's even easier to ground. But there's also many clients I have are from the city, and I used to live in Berlin. So I actually, maybe I told you on the event, I was walking through my garden all the time and working in the garden. But now, as I heard from you and learned more about it, it's maybe not the best idea if you live in the city. Can you talk a bit about grounding in general, and then maybe how would you do it in the city, or would you even do it?
Yeah. What grounding does, it makes you part of the circuit. So outside in nature, as I explained earlier, grounding, connecting our DC system, bare feet, flesh, bare feet on the ground, laying on the ground, go out camping. This is very, very healthy and very beneficial. It comes as a nasty shock to people that to connect with nature, you actually have to be in nature. And people are always looking in our modern world for shortcuts. And they think that by connecting themselves to a wire to their home's electrical system, because it's called a ground, they're going to get the same benefit as they do by being outside in nature. The problem with that is grounding makes you part of the circuit. So if you're joining yourself to your house's electrical system, that's the circuit that you're becoming a part of. So any transients, any ground effects, electrical ground effects that you get in the wiring of your house, or even outside your house, you are connecting yourself to that. So at the same time, I'm sitting here right now. I've got my body voltage meter here, and I've created this space that I sit in during the day, and I've got like 140 millivolts of electromagnetic field here, which is very, very low. You want to be below 1,000 during the day and below 100 at night. So this is a very good low reading for daytime. If I was to touch a ground cord or a ground pad, this reading would go to 0. Now, the reason it goes to 0 is that the field that I'm in, 140 millivolts, I'm still in 140 millivolts, but instead of going through this hand to ground, if I touched, like my computer's grounded, so I touch the computer, and look what happens. It's dropping
Going to
down.
0. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still in the same field, but instead of going through this hand to ground, it's now going through this hand to ground because it's following the path of least resistance. But people sell grounding mats by using a body voltage meter, and maybe they've got 1,000 or 2,000 millivolts in their bedroom, and then they touch the grounding pad and it goes to 0, and they're told, see, you fixed the problem. No, you haven't fixed the problem. You've still got 2,000 millivolts, but instead of going through the meter to ground, it's going through your foot to the ground on the grounding pad, but you're still in 2,000 millivolts. But now the 2,000 millivolts that your body is acting as an antenna for now has a path of least resistance through you to ground all night long. So it's the difference between being in a bathtub, you're still wet, but the difference between being in a bathtub and being wet and sitting under a waterfall and being wet is quite significantly different. So when we ground ourselves in our homes and we're exposed to an AC field, that AC field, we're not just in the field now, which is bad enough. Now it's flowing through us all night long to the ground. So we're actually increasing our exposure to the AC field, exacerbating the problem, not solving the problem. Very controversial. Lots of people selling grounding devices are going to be very upset. But think about it. We're told by the same people, you need to get rid of your metal bed frame because the metal bed frame can attract electric fields. You need to get rid of the springs in your mattress because the spring acts as an antenna, and that antenna, the radio frequencies that are attracted by because anytime you've got a piece of metal, it's attracting electric fields, and it can attract radio frequency because of the antenna effect. Okay, fine.
Also my earring.
To a certain degree. So, purists won't wear metal jewelry for that very reason. But the same people tell us to get a metallic sheet or pillowcase or grounding pad on our bed, connect a wire to it, which if we're connecting to the ground in our house, like in an apartment, because we can't get the wire outside because we're on the 3rd or the 4th floor, the average 1,000 square foot apartment has 2,000 feet of wires. So now you've attached yourself directly to an antenna array that could be half a mile of wires made up of the neutrals and the ground wires in the house. Or maybe you are on the ground floor or the 1st floor of a building and you throw a 50-foot cord out the window. Well, that 50-foot cord is a 50-foot antenna. So the same people that tell us to get rid of the metal bed frames and the metal in our mattresses and don't wear metal jewelry are telling us to put a metallic sheet on our bed, attach a wire to it, which is connected to the house electrical system, or a 50-foot, 100-foot antenna out the window. You can't have it both ways. So, like I said, I hate to tell you people, if you want to connect to nature, you have to get outside and be in nature. We'll go walk on the beach, get out in a field away from, or a forest away from electromagnetic fields. So there's no wires, there's no buildings, and actually spend time in nature. It's very, very hard to connect with nature in a city, and especially if you're going to connect to the house electrical system, the very system that's causing the problem in the first place, and now you've literally hardwired connected yourself to it. So why do some people, when they start grounding, get better? This is a natural question.
Would have been my next question.
Well, if you're very, very sick, the advantages of grounding, even in the house, can outweigh the disadvantages. So you can go, by grounding, you can go from being chronically sick to not so sick. But if you're not so sick, the odds of it making you better, or if you're already in not optimum health, but, medium health, and you ground, you're not going to go from medium health to better health. You're going to go from medium health to less health because of the waterfall effect, if you like to go back to that analogy. So for some people, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. But as you improve in health, things that helped you get better aren't going to necessarily make you optimally healthy. And at different stages of the process, we incorporate different things that work well for somebody here, but not so well up here. And there's things you can get away with up here that you can't get away with down here. So the same thing goes for EMF mitigation. Yeah, sometimes even grounding in the house can help you, but that's normally an indication that you're really not in good health to begin with, and the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. So I hope that explanation helps a little bit.
Yeah, helps a lot. And actually, I'm one of the persons. I think last year as well, right? You had also like the sleeping mat. I'm not using it anymore, but Anthony told me on the member event, if I go out far on the countryside with my camping van, where there's no other source of dirty electricity or like Wi-Fi towers or like cell towers,
man-made EMF, right? Yeah,
man-made EMF. Then it's maybe you can do it. Put the grounding rod in the ground and use your grounding mat. So when I'm getting back to Germany and to my camper, I will put my grounding sheet there. Maybe use it one more time in my life.
Because if you're outside, there's no radio frequency. There's no 60 hertz or 50 hertz AC fields, DC fields. Yeah. So in that situation, because sometimes if you're camping in the winter, sleeping on the damp or the snow on the ground, you are going to be in your camper. So that may be the one situation where a grounding sheet or grounding pad and a short piece of wire out into the ground could be advantageous, absolutely. But that's a very controlled situation, and you don't want to do that in your driveway.
Good, but it helps the people also to understand the whole concept, why it's working there and not there. In the city or in nature.
What I'd like to do is share, and as I go to the lengths of explaining and using the examples that I do, because if people can understand the principles, then those principles can be applied in a multitude of situations. But once you understand the basic concepts, it makes it easier to, when you're measuring, coming up with the different mitigation techniques and understanding, how and why they work. So, yeah.
Yeah. That was a great explanation, and I gained a lot more clarity on this topic, because it was always a bit controversial for me as well, because all these people tell you to buy these grounding mats and so on. But thank you.
You're very welcome.
I have one more question. You talked about that people are sensitive to some radio waves and so on. And is there an explanation why some people are more sensitive than other people to certain frequencies?
Well, there's a number of reasons. I mean, some people are allergic to peanuts and some people aren't. So our body chemistry is different. Body mass has something to do with it. If you've got an antenna this long, it attracts a certain frequency. But if you have an antenna this long, it attracts different frequencies. So our body mass has a lot to do with it. The percentage of water that we are made up of. Babies are 70% water. As we get older, old people tend to be 50% water. We dehydrate as we get older. So all of that comes into play. Do you have heavy metals in your body? Have you been exposed to lead and aluminum and mercury? So the percentage, do you have metal fillings in your teeth? Do you have implants in your body? These are all different types of reasons. And basically, EMF exposure is cumulative. So two people can be in the same house, and one is affected by the EMF in that house and the other one isn't. Well, maybe that's because one of them has had a higher level of exposure leading up to living in the house. So, nobody died of smoking a cigarette, but 20 a day for 20 years makes a difference. And so EMF exposure is the same thing. Kids today that have an iPad for a babysitter from an age of, 2 or 3 years old, and children with cell phones, I'm very glad to hear, I don't know about Germany, but France and other places in Europe, they are not allowing children under 11 to 12 years old to have cell phones, because they realize
Good.
that the detrimental effect that they can have on the brain when you hold a cell phone up, because their skulls are much thinner than an adult's brain. So a cell phone usage on a child will have a much greater detrimental effect than on an adult. Also, they're banning cell towers from schools and churches and where there's children in Europe. Whereas here, half the schools have got a cell phone tower because they get money from renting out the space. Devastating. And the computer lab, you've got, all these computers and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And again, Europe is very much ahead on this. And if you have a computer lab, then they have to be hardwired, and they're reducing or restricting or doing away with the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth around schools and places like that, which is great. So America can learn a lot from Europe on this particular subject.
Yeah, interesting. But I was working in a school like a couple of months ago. I just quitted my teaching job, but I had the feeling it was kind of, first it was hardwired, but people always wanted the Wi-Fi and like the non-wireless technology, but not seeing the problem. So it's still like, yeah, it's like the elephant in the room you don't see.
Yeah, we still have a ways to go, but the openness and the willingness to look at it and consider it and take action seems to be, Europe definitely seems to be ahead on this particular subject area. And, the telecommunications companies, they did no research to see if the 3G, the 4G, now the 5G frequencies are detrimental to the health. I mean, they know that they are, but they got a plausible deniability because, they didn't do the studies. And they deny the ones that have been done as being non-scientific and what have you. Yeah. But just like with asbestos and lead and DDT and smoking, it's going to take a while. But eventually, EMF is that new subject that is very, right now, controversial. But the evidence is there, and it's just a matter of getting through to the people that make the decisions. People have to be interested in having a healthcare system, not a disease management system. So, if your motivation is actually to heal people and make them better, which is what they're implementing in El Salvador, then your approach is completely different than having a disease management system, which is, a healed person is a lost customer, if that's your model, which unfortunately in America, and centralized medicine, would seem to be where they're coming from, certainly by the way they go about doing what they do. So,
yeah, and I think right now in these days the effects are getting even stronger. And there's another topic which leads where it can lead us now. People it's getting more and more obvious since we have also this 5G and 5G cities. Can you maybe also go into that, how mobile data or 5G is changing and compared to 4G or LTE or 3G, and how this is affecting us?
Yeah, so as far as the technology goes, 3G, 4G, 5G, that's third generation, fourth generation, and fifth generation. Each generation incorporates different technology that allows them to process the data in different ways, and also allows them to utilize different frequencies. But 5G technology, fifth generation telephone technology, in America, the T-Mobile network is, 600 or 800 megahertz. It's not even 1 gig. AT&T here is C-band, which is is between 3 and 4 gigahertz of data speed. But it's not just the frequency of the signal in and of itself, be it so your microwave oven. A lot of people won't use microwave ovens because they consider them to be dangerous. They don't consider them to be healthy. Very true. A microwave oven uses 2.4 gigahertz. So the people that won't use a microwave oven for 3 minutes to heat up their coffee have a Wi-Fi router sitting on their desk or a few feet from their head when they go to sleep. And the Wi-Fi router uses 2.4 gigahertz. So rather than they won't use a microwave oven
For 3 minutes versus
for
whole
3
day,
minutes,
right?
but they'll sit next to a Wi-Fi router that's putting out the same frequency. Now say, well, a microwave oven's that much more powerful. Well, inside the microwave oven, it's more powerful. But if I get my RF meter and I hold this 4 feet from my microwave oven, heating up a cup of coffee, I get exactly the same reading as I get 4 feet from a Wi-Fi router. So having a Wi-Fi router on your desk putting out 2.4 gigahertz is like having a microwave oven on your desk that's on the whole time. And guess what? Bluetooth headsets, 2.4 gigahertz. So there's no bone here. Those headsets, each the one on the left and the one on the right, are talking to each other through your brain. And right in the middle of your brain is the pineal gland, which is responsible for melatonin and you being able to get to sleep at night. So you have literally put your head in a microwave oven by wearing Bluetooth headsets. Literally, you've put your head in a microwave oven. So the frequencies in and of themselves are important. And I said, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi is the same frequency as a microwave oven, different power. But then a cell phone tower half a mile away is far, far more powerful than my cell phone in my hand. But due to proximity, I'm not worried about the cell phone tower half a mile away. I'm worried about the cell phone in my hand that's broadcasting a signal that reaches the cell phone tower half a mile away, and it's inches from my head. So because of proximity, the cell phone is a far more dangerous and impacting device than the cell phone tower half a mile away. So the 5G technology can utilize anything from 600 megahertz up to, 20 gigahertz, 50 gigahertz, 100 gigahertz. But the thing about the higher frequencies, anything above 8 gigahertz, that's why they're having to put up cell towers much, much closer to each other, because the higher technology, the higher frequencies don't travel as far and they're not as penetrating. Back in the day, you could be in a concrete building, in a concrete tube, in a metal box, an elevator, and talk on your phone. That's a 3G signal. It's going through everything. 4G, probably not so much. 5G, you can't get a 5G signal of 8 gigahertz or 20 gigahertz if you're inside a building. You can go to a coffee shop and sit outside, and if there's a 5G tower there, you can get a 5G signal. But if you go inside the coffee shop and sit 2 feet to the left, but now you've got a sheet of glass between you and the 5G tower, your phone won't pick up a 5G signal. It won't go through the glass. So an interesting, is 5G a problem? Yes, it is. But if you're going to download a movie, would you rather spend 5 minutes downloading a movie in 4G, using 4G, or download the same movie in 10 seconds using 5G?
I don't know. Tell me.
Well, is 5 minute exposure to a 4G signal more harmful than a 10-second exposure to a 5G signal, which is that much faster? Now, when you're talking on the phone, you don't need, 3G works, 4G works. You don't need a 5G signal. But for data transfer, if you can do the data transfer 100 times more quickly with 5G, are you actually having less exposure than having that data transfer at a much slower rate in 4G? It's just a thought. I don't actually know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
But 5G, a lot of people are concerned about 5G, and it's not so much the 5G in and of itself, it's the pulse width modulation that the 5G is being delivered. The technology allows the technology to the signal to be delivered in bullets and packets of information that increases the data stream. It's not just the 5 gigahertz or 10 gigahertz or 20 gigahertz. It's the frequency within the frequency is, let's say you've got a AT&T, a 3 gigahertz signal. but the pulse width modulation, the frequency of the bullets of information coming to you is actually as big, if not a greater problem, from what I understand it. Again, this is down to not necessarily a power issue in and of itself, but a frequency issue. And there are certain frequencies that are extremely detrimental to our system, certain frequencies that are far more detrimental than other frequencies. And hopefully, like changing from AC to a DC grid in the future, hopefully we can find frequencies that we can communicate with that aren't detrimental to our health, at least neutral. Maybe they're not the healing frequencies, but maybe, wouldn't it be amazing if we could use a healing frequency for communication?
Mm.
This is research that needs to be done. And hopefully in the future, some genius somewhere will come up with a means of communication that we can have all the technology, but use a frequency that's actually not detrimental, but may even be healthy. What an idea.
Yeah, the genius, usually they listen to our podcast, so maybe it can happen. Lars, do you have more questions?
Yes. What solutions exist for reducing EMF exposure? And there are certain products like stickers or other devices, and also clothing, which protects us against EMF exposure. At least some people say it. Maybe you can share your opinion on it.
Okay, let's go with the clothing first. The clothing is the reason it works, and you have the Faraday clothing, be it a hoodie or T-shirt, or they have the belly bands for pregnant women. Excellent idea. That is, the metallic content of the fabric is blocking the RF signal, the radio frequency signal. But because it's metallic, it's attracting the 50 hertz signal, the electric signal. So at the same time as blocking the radio frequency, it's attracting the electric signal, the electric frequency. So the question is, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? And for a pregnant woman, absolutely. If she has to work in an office, she's got a laptop or a phone in front of her, and she can protect the baby, then I would say the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. But the same as using grounding sheets on your bed. If you're traveling, flying in an aircraft, airports and airplanes are such unbelievably toxic environments that the advantages of wearing shielded clothing in those situations would probably outweigh the disadvantages, because that is a very, very high RF environment. And as bad as the electric fields are, they pale in comparison to the detrimental effect of the high RF that you're getting in those environments. So again, for people who are traveling by plane, yes, I think wearing RF clothing, Faraday clothing, having a blanket that you cover yourself with in the airplane, probably be very, very good. Under normal circumstances in your home, where you've got 60 hertz AC fields, and you can measure this when you put a canopy bed up, it will block the RF signal. We sell a canopy bed, Faraday bed, canopy, and it's 99.9% attenuation. That reduces the RF. So for people living in a downtown apartment where the RF is a major issue that they have no control over because it's coming in from the outside, having a canopy bed is good. But if they don't turn off the 60 hertz or the 50 hertz field in their bedroom, you can take a body voltage meter inside that canopy and measure the bed without the canopy and measure the bed with the canopy, and the electric field will go up. So to use a canopy to block RF, you really, really do need to make sure that you turn off the 60 hertz AC fields. Otherwise, by fixing one problem, you're actually creating another. But again, it depends upon the circumstances and the situation. Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? And in those situations I've shared, I believe they probably do. Now, the stickers, harmonizers, neutralizers. I have a simple question. If you have a sticker on your phone, be it Shungite or some special flower of life emblem.
I have a Shungite necklace.
Shungite necklace. Great. Does your phone still work?
Yeah.
Do the lights go out when you walk in the room?
No.
So
they're
you
never
still
on,
got,
but
So you still got 60. If the lights don't go out, your toaster still works, your coffee pot still works. You still have 60 hertz there in El Salvador, 50 hertz in Germany. If I have a sticker on my phone, but I still can make a phone call, my phone is still picking up the signal from the cell phone tower, and the cell phone tower is still picking up the signal from my phone. What exactly has the sticker done? What's it harmonizing? What's it neutralizing if my phone still works and my toaster still works? What's it doing?
Yeah, tell me.
I think the answer's obvious.
Yes.
But there are some. But you have this. I remember you have this shielded card, right, on your phone, on the backside of your phone or your phone case.
Oh yeah. Where is it? Okay. So see if I can find.
Take your time. All good.
Okay. So this is a phone case. I could put my phone in this case. It's rather tight. Put this on my belt. So now my body is here. This side is no shielding. So the phone is completely open. On this side, the shielding. So when this is up against my body is being protected from the signal being broadcast by the phone. I don't want shielding on the other side, because otherwise when the phone pings the tower to say, I'm here, do you have any messages for me? If it doesn't get a ping back, it doubles the power. And then it doubles the power again. And then it doubles the power again until it's at full power, looking for a signal. So I don't want to block the phone. I just want to block the phone signal from hitting me. So I can be talking on the phone and I'm shielded, but the phone can broadcast and receive a signal. So I have a hard one of these. There's just one layer, and I put that in my pocket, and then I put my phone in the pocket, and I'm protected from the signal from my phone. So if I was talking on my cell phone now, I would have the phone on the outside and I'd be talking like this. So I'm making a cell phone call with it on speakerphone, but my brain is not getting radiated by the phone because the shield is protecting me. So that's exactly what you want to do. If you're in a situation where you've got a Wi-Fi router that you cannot turn off, say you're in an office being shared by other people, get a shield between you and the Wi-Fi router, maybe a metal mesh. In America, in Staples office supply place, they have a range of products that are made of metal mesh. They have waste paper baskets and paper trays and folder bins that you put papers in. Well, they're made of metal mesh, and that's exactly the same as the metal mesh on the front of your microwave oven. So if you've got a Wi-Fi router on the desk that you can't turn off, and you put a metal mesh waste paper basket or paper tray or something between you and it, it's going to reduce the signal by 90%. So you can have the Wi-Fi router on, but you're shielded from the majority of its effect. So in a home situation, an office situation, let's say you're a doctor and you have to have the phone on. Put a shield between you and the phone. So if the phone's on, you can receive your emergency call in the middle of the night, but it's not right there next to your bed and you're not getting radiated all night long. Just use a little bit of common sense. Now I'm protected, but the phone is still on and I can still receive the emergency phone call.
A quick question. Do you have your 5G signal? Do you always turn it off?
Actually, where I live, I'm out in the boonies away from the city, and it actually makes no difference if you have it turned off or not, because the cell tower is broadcasting anyway. The thing about 5G is you're probably making the connection with a 4G signal. And then when the phone does the handshake with the cell phone tower, the phone says, I'm a 5G phone. Do you have a 5G signal? And the cell phone tower says, oh, yeah. And now it jumps from 4G to 5G and broadcasts the signal in 5G. So unless you have a 5G device, you're not going to get that 5G signal. But the 5G signal is being broadcast. Another thing the 5G technology allows them to do is once they pick up it, they can focus that signal in on you. 4G is just broadcast, and you have to be in that triangle to get the signal. But with 5G, when they pick you up, you're over here. It's not broadcasting the signal this way. It's broadcasting it directly at you.
Okay.
So I don't turn 5G off. Again,
Would you recommend it in the city?
I don't know it's going to change your exposure. I mean, it's like I had this conversation with somebody on the forum just recently. They live in Chicago. and they're asking all these ways that they can clean up their environment. I said, look, you live in a mud pit. You're asking me how to get clean. You live in a mud pit. Leave the mud pit. You want to get clean? Leave the mud pit. How do you get clean in a mud pit?
Yeah, that's very direct, and it's just the truth. But for some people, yeah, it's really tough. And then also because we were talking about science, then these people, yeah, this is how humans kind of work. Like we want to feel safe where we are right now, and then we have this straw, like, but it's just all pseudo science. So like there is nothing, like all the studies, they're bullshit, or as you maybe our listeners, some of them know, and you maybe know, or Lars also knows, is the book of Andrew Moreno, where he's talking about all these studies and people telling, yeah, the studies are not working, or it's not, you cannot reproduce them, so it's not the truth. Or there was like one study with rats who got bigger after exposure to non-native EMF, and the next group got smaller, and then the conclusion was there is no effect from non-native EMF. So they just kind of mix the science in a really weird way. And I would suggest the listeners to, or recommend the listeners to really read that book, and you can feel into yourself how this doctor describes, and he's a lawyer as well, so he's somehow connected to the truth as well. And if you read that book, you will get a feeling like, is there maybe something to it, and how actually the history and the science developed in this whole topic.
Right.
And this lets us how we are here now, and people like telling this parallel truth. Like there are studies, like you also already mentioned, but we're just repeating another truth, so that the people at some point think it's just bullshit.
Yeah, for the people out there that this is new to, don't believe me. Do not believe me. Prove me wrong. So go to your bedroom, turn on the lights, turn on the plugs, turn on the lights and the plugs in the room next door. Go to your breaker panel, turn off the breakers so that the lights are off in your room, the plugs are off in your room. If you're in an upstairs and you've got a room downstairs, turn off the lights in the room downstairs, because that's your floor right underneath your bed. So maybe it's 2 breakers, 3 breakers, 4 breakers. For 1 week, turn them off at night before you go to bed, turn them back on in the morning, and see if after a week you don't feel better. It doesn't matter what the doctors say. It doesn't matter what the scientists say. It doesn't matter what the skeptics say. It doesn't matter what the cell phone company says. Turn off the 60 hertz, 50 hertz AC in your home. Turn off your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth. Don't keep your phone by your bed. Just try it for a week, or put up a shield between you and it so you're not being radiated all night long. Reduce the EMF exposure around you at night for 1 week and see how you feel. And if you feel better, it's worth making investment and getting a cutoff switch and, some of these cutoff devices and things like that. If you're somebody that believes in this and your partner doesn't, just give them the challenge. Give me 6 days. Give me 7 days. Let's try it for a week. And if at the end of the week you can't tell the difference, we won't do it. But if you can tell the difference, if they're sleeping better, if they're feeling better, and it's not something we talk about normally, but I've had several phone calls from guys who, or even ladies, after they've had the cutoff switch for a few days, and they go, Anthony, are there any other beneficial side effects to cutting off non-native EMF at night? If you know what I'm asking, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I go, oh, yes, we've had several reports from gentlemen who suddenly didn't have the same problems they had before, shall we say, and it can be very beneficial to relationships, shall we say. So that's another benefit that, again, we don't publicize it widely, but we've had feedback on. So getting better sleep, improve relationships, shall we say. So just try it for a week, read the books, understand the science and technology, understand the arguments, But at the end of the day, is it beneficial to you? And normally within a week, most people can tell the difference. We've had people that were so sensitive to EMF that when they went out, they had like 5 minutes in the store. They had to run in, very short list, get out, they'd go home. It would take them 2 days to recover. After they had a cutoff switch, cutting off the power and the neutral, sleeping in a sleep sanctuary, after a couple of months, they could go out, be out for 2 or 3 hours, come home, maybe take an hour or two just to recoup and recover, and then they were good to go. Dramatic, radical difference between sleeping in a sleep sanctuary and not. It changed changed their lives. And we've had one report, a family with an autistic child. The child was 5 years old, hadn't spoken in 5 years. Within 1 week of getting an EMF safe cutoff switch in the house with a neutral and power disconnect, that child was sleeping in a EMF mitigated environment for 1 week. And after 5 years of not talking, the child started talking.
Wow, that's great. Wow, amazing.
So try it.
Yeah. This is actually, it helps me as well. Like I'm talking to many people also on my Instagram, and Lars knows this as well as a sleep coach. People they tried so many things already, right? And people are getting more aware of their health. And like you framed it, it's like the elephant. You cannot see, it's behind the walls, or it's not visible. And give it a try. Like since when do we have all these health problems? Like it's a bit more than a century ago when we all invented this, and maybe there's a deeper connection to it. And yeah, don't trust us, trust Anthony, and trust yourself. Yeah, and that's
trust
really,
yourself, and
trust
it's
yourself.
It's probably purely coincidental that with every new technology that there was a health outbreak. Probably no direct correlation isn't causation, but it just so happens every time we get a new technology, whether it be radio, electrical grid, radio, television, cell phones, it just so happened there was a health outbreak as the bodies took time to adjust and figure out what to do with this new non-native, non-natural, man-made frequency. And there was a period of adjustment that we have to physically go through. But it's really important to improve the positives, increase the positives, but at the same time remove the negatives. And even Jack Kruse says, he's telling everybody, watch the sun rise, be out in the sun, get the sun on your body as much as possible throughout the day. But at the same time, you have to minimize your non-native EMF exposure, because one of the effects of 60 hertz and 50 hertz AC electric fields is it does something to the vitamin A in the body, actually turns the vitamin A toxic in some form. He can explain the science behind that. But if you have a high non-native EMF exposure, it affects the biochemistry to the point that you can literally be in the sun all day long and not get the benefits of it, make the vitamin D.
That was me in Berlin.
Yeah.
Always low vitamin D. I was super tanned, but still low vitamin D. This is why I'm here now.
Yeah. Because of the 60 hertz AC exposure specifically. And so we need to increase the positives while at the same time reducing the negatives. And it's that balance, and we're all in a process of doing that. And some days we do better than others. But, people want the technology, but they don't want the EMF. And I go into people's homes all the time. Oh, you can't turn off the Wi-Fi. You can't turn off the sound system. You can't turn off our security system, which runs on Wi-Fi. Well, the least I can do is to create a safe space in their bedroom, so at least in 8 hours they're not being exposed. But it's like living in a beach house and saying, I really want to live on the beach. I really want a beach house, but I don't want the salt air in my house. Get rid of the salt air.
Yeah.
Well, if you live by the beach, you're going to have salt air. Well, no, I don't want the salt air, but I want to live on the beach. You don't want salt air, you have to move away from the beach. And that's the way people are with technology. They want the technology, but they don't want the EMF. You have to make a choice. And unfortunately, many people don't make that choice until they have to make the choice, because the technology is literally killing them, killing them.
True.
And then they're motivated to do something about it. And for some people, unfortunately, it's too late. They can never recover because they've gone so far. They can never recover. They may improve a little bit, but I encourage everybody, reduce your exposure now before I call it hitting the wall, or the straw that breaks the camel's back. The straw that breaks the camel's back might be a smart meter on your house, in your neighborhood. It might be a cell phone tower that moves just down the street from you. Well, that doesn't mean that's the problem. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm allergic to cell phone towers. Well, you are, but that's the straw that broke the camel's back.
Mm.
That straw's not the problem. The problem is the load that was on the camel in the first place. So I may not be able to do anything about the cell phone tower down the road, but I can help you unload your camel. And if we take 50, 70% of the load off the camel, then the odds of that cell phone tower down the road bothering you nearly as much is greatly reduced. It's not going to bother you. It's not going to have the same effect. So I'm in the unloading the camel business.
Great business, and I think now the people have many steps, important steps, easy steps to start with, and then see what changes for them and how they feel before they hit the wall. Yeah, Lars, do you have some more final thoughts or questions?
I think we wrap it up here, because there was a lot of information. And thank you, Anthony, for your time and for your knowledge. And I think you brought this whole topic, which is sometimes very difficult for people to grasp, in a very nice way to in various we got into various topics around EMFs. And you did a great job explaining everything in a very easy way to understand. And
even I got it. Yeah. Now, after the third time you're explaining me.
Get a body voltage meter, get a RF meter, a Gauss meter, measure your environment, understand the readings, understand what's going on, mitigate, come up with a mitigation plan that you can turn things off, move things away, shield things, know that you've done a good job because the readings go down, and that way you can mend. So mum's the word: measure, understand, mitigate, so that you can mend. And live, emfsafe.com, LIVE, emfsafe.com, and there's lots of information on the website. And if you have questions, I don't speak German, unfortunately, to the German audience, but hopefully everybody listening speaks English. We are available for coaching and counseling as well.
So you also work with clients overseas for counseling?
Yeah. The meters work everywhere. You might need a different adapter for the wall to convert the American plug to the European plug. Whatever, they work. And you can take the measurements, and then we can help you understand them and come up with some techniques of mitigation. Our cutoff switch is designed for the American market. We have a different electrical grid system here. We are considering making one for the, I think, don't you have 240 in Germany?
Last, do you know?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think you have single pole 240 like in England, but I'm not sure. So we may not be able to do a cutoff switch, but there may be some other products there or just, there's other things we can help you with. So yeah, we are available for consulting, shall we say.
Wow, that's super helpful. And people always remember, people trying already so many things and try to change their habits. And this is actually not a habit. It's just a switch. And you don't have to do anything. And then it can even help you to gain the energy, maybe to improve other habits. But can be a super good first step. So I'm also talking in my coaching about usually just change the environment first, and then let's start from there. Yeah, yes. Great. So people know now. We will also link your homepage in the show notes, so that people can find you there and all the information. Yeah, I'm pretty grateful that you explained it to me again. So yeah, I need my time to process that, and fortunately I live in an environment with more people who are a bit into that topic, and also, listeners, when you hear this or when you do the readings for yourself, when you see it on a meter, like, oh, we just turn off this breaker and then like everything goes off and you see the numbers go down, then it feels like, oh, now I really see there's a point of doing this, and feels different than just talking about it. And yeah, so thank you for that. Yeah, so people know where they can find you, and hopefully some people will go even deeper into it and experience, of course, it. And yeah, if you like the podcast, then, as you know, just give it a good rating on Google. Oh, not on Google. On Google also possible? No. On Spotify, on on YouTube, and on Apple Podcast. And if you have more questions also to the EMF topic, then go ahead, ask us, ask Anthony, send him a mail. I hope it's okay. And then you get in contact with him, and he's a super helpful guy, and he always finds as you realize now, finds a good explanation for everything, and has good pictures, images, metaphors for explaining the thing. And yeah, share this information with your friends, especially when you have when you made your own experience and got better. Then share it with your loved ones, and it's an easy step to go. Lars, do you have final words?
Yeah, thank you again, Anthony. This was really great, and yeah, was super helpful for us and also for our listeners. And yeah, see you next
very
time,
welcome.
guys. And yeah,
All right, then
thank you.
bye. See you next week.